Welcome to the Private Sanctuary podcast. I'm Alexander Augunas, the Everyman Gamer, and today I am joined by a very special guest. Today I'm joined by Jefferson Jay Thacker, also known as Perram. Hey, Perram, how you doing?
Hey, Alex, I'm doing great.
All right. So you're probably wondering, hey, why is Perram here? You're also probably wondering, hey, where's Anthony? And perhaps the biggest question of all, you're probably wondering, wow, why am I looking at this on YouTube? Well, the answer to all of these questions is the same. For a while, I've wanted to do an episode on Harrow readings, and since I lack the tech to pull it off, I've enlisted Perram to help me out because Perram is our master technician here at the No Direction Network.
I'm a technomancer, actually. I'm going with the Starfinder rules today.
You know what? I'm glad that James L. Sutter was able to create a character class that perfectly encapsulates everything you are to us, Perram. And it came to my attention that not many people actually know how to do Harrow readings, or more importantly, how to capture the mystique of doing a fortune teller style reading. And when you get right down to it, it doesn't involve a whole lot of preparation in terms of memorizing what cards do. It's more about the questions you ask and your ability to string things together. In order to do that, we're also going to be taking a look at one of Perram's PFS characters, and we're going to be doing a reading on how this character joined the Pathfinder Society. Perram, do you want to talk a little bit about your character before we get started?
Yeah, I've got a character here. Her name is Kira. She is a currently fifth level fighter who has never seen a table play. She is a GM baby.
That's perfect.
And, other than that, she's an Andorran faction. I know some basic things about her backstory, but she has not seen play, and I've not really explored her background much because, I haven't had a need to yet.
Right. I think for another episode, we're going to have to talk about how you made that fancy box, or at the very least get like a No Direction makes or something, because that is an awesome box, let me say.
We've talked about this on the No Direction show when these were made, so...
Ooh, then we need
previous episodes.
All right, maybe we'll see if we can find the exact episode and put it in the show notes, or maybe we'll let you Where's Waldo it, listeners and readers. We'll see. All right, so... First off, let's talk about the things that you're going to need in order to perform a Harrow reading. The first thing is obviously a Harrow deck. Paizo makes two varieties of them. Perram, can you show us the really cool one first?
Okay, I keep it in this box because this is where I pull it from when I need it during our play at the game room. And this is the newer one, right?
It is. That is the Deluxe Harrow deck. The Deluxe Harrow deck is not perfectly sized for tarot cards, but it's very, very similar, especially to older style cards. Newer ones sometimes come in bigger sizes, but it's much more accurate if you want to catch the fortune teller feel because they're bigger. The other deck that you can work with is the same size as a set of playing cards, which Perram is going to show you now.
Yeah, I keep this one in this box because we don't really give it a lot of play.
Right. James asked me to point out that this is the deck that he has, and he finds that this deck is much better if you're playing a character option that uses Harrow, like the Harrower Prestige class or the Harrow Witch archetype from the Harrow Handbook. Both of them are very beautiful. Do you want to show us a little bit of the art before we get started?
Okay, well, here's the old deck. It's a bit messed up, but...
Nah, it's fine. We're going to be mostly using the new one anyway. All right, as you can see, they are full color illustrations. They are gorgeous. You'll also see that they have names on them, and they have weird symbols in different places. I'm not going to talk about the standard Harrow deck symbols, but they basically follow the same rules. They just look a lot nicer on the deluxe one. It's a little bit better thought out, and it's a little bit closer to what a tarot card would look like. So speaking of those beautiful deluxe cards, let's see them. Can you pick a card you like, Perram, and just stop on the top so we can take a look at the parts of a Harrow card?
Because it's favorites. The Rabbit Prince.
Rabbit Prince is a great one. So there are a couple different parts of the tarot card the Harrow card that are important when you're doing a reading, and I'm going to ask Perram to point them out to you as you go. Around the border of the card, there are 8 dots. Those 8 dots symbolize the 9 alignments, with the final quote-unquote dot would be in the center of the card where the picture is, except that would look really weird. So if a card is aligned in the center, there's just not a dot. So there are some cards in the decks that don't have any dots. Well, what do I mean by dots? Perram, if you would point to your right-hand side, there's a little white dot with a key on it. That symbolizes the card's alignment. If you start at the top row of a given card, yes, there's another one there on that particular card. If you start at the top row towards the top edge of the card, all of those dots correspond with good alignments. The ones on the bottom of the illustration correspond with evil alignments, and then the two in the middle correspond with neutral alignments. Then if you want to go from left to right, the left series of dots symbolize lawful alignments, the right series symbolizes chaotic alignments, and the two in the middle, again, symbolize neutral. So that dot in the middle, like where that you can't see because it would have been behind the picture and therefore there's no dot, it would be true neutral. So if a card doesn't have one of those symbols in such a position, it's a true neutral card. Top left-hand corner is lawful good, bottom right is chaotic evil, so on and so forth. A card's alignment is very important to talking about how the card plays on this field. One more thing, Perram, if you could point to the little picture at the bottom of the card underneath the illustration and all the dots. Every card has one. There are 6 illustrations. They come in the form of keys, which represent dexterity. You have books, which represent intelligence. Shields represent constitution. Stars represent wisdom. Crowns represent charisma. And representing strength is... I'm blanking. Is it the sword?
I don't know.
I am totally blanking on strength.
Hammer?
As you can... that's it. It's hammer. It's the card of hammers.
So on the back.
Oh, yeah. So if you ever pull an Alex and completely forget, you can just flip your card to the back and check them out. Mm-hmm. All right. So every card also has a name, which is on it. I think that's worth mentioning, but it's also kind of obvious. So next, when you're doing a Harrow reading, the first thing you have to do is you shuffle the deck really well. And once the deck is shuffled, you are supposed to ask a question. The question determines the nature of the reading, what you're doing, why you're doing it. So for the purpose of this reading, our question is, how did Kira join the Pathfinder Society, and what's her general relationship with the Pathfinders? So as you can see, Perram is shuffling the deck well. When he's done, he's going to cut the deck in half. If he feels like doing a fancy, shuffling technique, he can. Or if he's like me and he's like, oh, snap, these are $20 cards, I'm totally going to be careful with these and not do that. He'll be gentle.
Well, one of the things I did to protect my $20 cards is that I have them in the protective sleeves, which is actually making it a little hard to shuffle. No more harder than shuffling a standard playing cards and sleeves that you can get from like Amazon. You just search for tarot-sized card sleeves. Fantasy Flight actually makes these batch, and it's like $10 for way more than enough to put your deck in. And I even keep a spare one to keep the Harrow manual in.
Wow, that's wonderful. I actually didn't know that these types of card sleeves existed before Perram showed them to me today. So, if you have the $10 to get them, I would recommend it, because nothing's worse than seeing your fancy cards get damaged. So Perram is done shuffling. Can you cut the deck for us, Perram? And so our question is, how did Kira join the Pathfinder Society, and what is her relationship to the Pathfinders? All right. So normally this is where we would start setting the actual spread up, and I will show you how to do that. But this is a good place to interject with one of the most important rules of fortune telling. Not Harrow, not tarot, not fortune telling. Or not Harrow, not tarot, but fortune telling. If you're going to be a successful fortune teller, then the most important thing is to know something about the person you are doing a reading on. For mediums who are professionals, they will ask questions. They will ask probing questions specifically, meaning they will ask a question that they are trying to elicit a response from. as a game master, you don't really need to ask sneaky questions about it. And if you want to see good examples of it, I don't remember the name of the episode, but there's an episode of South Park in which Kyle tries to prove to everybody that mediums aren't real by using a lot of these questions to make guesses from his audience, and everyone goes crazy because he's good at this technique, which means he can do fortune tellings. It's a really funny episode, but it's the basic gist behind how any type of good tarot reading or horror reading works. So I'm going to break the golden rule of game design, and I'm going to say to Perram, please tell me about your character.
All right. Well, there's not much to tell about Kira except for that she is, first off, just stats. She is a human fighter with a focus on shields for the stat builds. Miniature, because I have one. Why not? The other thing about her is I do know that her family has a naval tradition because it fit with Andoran. She's from Andoran, from Augunas. I do know that she got into a spot of trouble early on in her career, and somehow that led to being in the society. Other than that, she's mostly a blank book.
All right. The only question I still have after that very informative bit is, does she have a human ethnicity?
Yes, she is Chelish.
All right. And she is Chelish. All right. So the first thing I'm going to think of as a card reader is that she's from Andoran, but she's Chelish. There's a lot of things you can do with that right away, because as a player, I know that Andoran had their civil war with Cheliax, and there's a lot of hostility there. We're talking about her being a naval family. And Andoran is a fairly young country, and Cheliax is a astoundingly good naval power base. So there's a potential for connections there as well. So right off of the bat, I'm thinking about what I know about Golarion or the world in general, and I'm trying to piece together different combinations that the cards could pop up when I do the reading. So the next thing you do is, after the deck is shuffled, you ask your person that you're doing the reading for to draw one card from the deck, and with that one card, it's going to determine the person's role. So Perram, you can pick any card you want from the deck. It can be from the middle, it can be from the top. Just pick a card. All right, Perram has selected his card. He's going to flip it over dramatically for you now. All right, Perram, please tell us your card.
It is the bear.
All right. So now if Perram holds the card up to the camera, you can see that the bear has none of the dots on it that we were talking about, and it is a hammers aligned card. So since it has no dots, that card is neutral. And I also know that it is a strength-based card because hammers is the suit of strength. Using my handy little Harrow manual that I have, and let me tell you, GMs, you might feel like you're a hack for consulting the book. Do not feel like a hack. Part of the fun of doing a good Harrow reading is seeing where the cards land and being able to come up with a good interpretation. So use that book. So I'm going to flip over to the hammers section in the book and look up the bear. I will read this for everybody. This says, the bear is pure strength. People often make the mistake of thinking the bear can be tamed or trained. When someone believes he has the bear under control, the person eventually learns the error of his ways. Brute force might be required, but the consequences of its use might be severe. So the first thing that makes me think of is that this character might have a little bit of a rough edge to them, especially when it talks about being tamed or trained. And when someone thinks he has the bear under control, that person learns the error of their ways. So that could mean that the trouble that Kira got into has something to do with her own personality. And since she's in a naval institute, which is a very rigorous, lawful institution, there's a good chance that she got in trouble with a superior. And that might be her overall role in this story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that in mind, and I'm going to say, okay, that's interesting. You usually want to ask your reader a question at this point. So the question that I'm going to say to Perram is, I'm going to be, oh, Perram, that card is interesting for Kira. It might be trying to tell me something. Can you tell me what Kira's alignment is?
She is LG, lawful good.
She's lawful good. So in my head, I know that that is an interesting combination for someone who cannot be tamed or trained. It might mean that she's got a little bit of a rebellious streak as a lawful good character. I'm going to keep that in my head and think about how the bear might relate to the cards that we're going to flip over now. So I'll say, all right, that's great. Perram, can you put the card back in the deck and shuffle it again?
Okay, shuffling it now. And I would normally shuffle a lot more vigorously than this, but we are burning airtime.
It's true. All right. So the next thing I'm going to have Perram do is I'm going to have him cut the deck one more time.
Okay, cutting.
Excellent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the Harrow spread. In fortune telling, a spread is just a pattern in which you lay out the cards. And Pathfinder has a very specific pattern that correlates to the general mechanics of the game, specifically the alignment mechanics. So Perram, what I want you to do is I want you to line out 3 cards side by side towards the middle of your table, like right where that little square is in the wood pattern. Yep, right up there. We need to make sure that there's room for 3 rows. So that's going to be Perram's first row. Now I want you to lay out a second row. You can put it on top of this row or on the bottom, wherever you feel is best.
Okay.
And finally, I'd like you to put a row on the bottom of the spread.
All right, and 1, and 2, and 3.
Perfect. So, Perram, I want you to gesture to the top row of the spread.
Okay.
Just like with the card itself, that top row represents the good alignment. The middle of the spread represents the neutral alignment, and the bottom of the spread represents the evil alignment. Also, the right column represents law. Or, I'm sorry, the right column represents chaos. Yeah, right there. The middle column represents neutrality, and the far left column represents order. But in this spread, each card position in the row has an additional meaning, specifically in terms of time. So the first thing I would like you to point to is the far... Oh, let's start with the left. Let's go to the left column. Mm-hmm. All of the cards in the left-hand column represent the past. All of the cards in the middle column represent the present. And all of the columns in the far side represent the future. A good way to remember this is that the past is lawful because it's set in stone. The present is neutral because you don't really have a whole lot of control over what's going to happen there. And the future is chaotic because you don't know what's going to be there. It's twisting, it's turning. You don't have much insight on it. Now, we're also going to go to in terms of how good the reading is. So I'd like you to gesture to the topmost row this time. This is the positive row. The middle is the unclear row, and the bottom is the negative row. So again, positive is good, negative is bad or evil, and neutral is unclear. You're not sure whether it's good or bad. So with this in mind, we can begin to read our Harrow setup. So the first thing that you want to do when you are doing a reading is you always show your person you're doing the fortune telling for the past first. So Perram, can you flip over all of the cards in the left-hand column?
We have the Mountain Man.
We have the Mountain Man.
Chaotic neutral shields. We have the Carnival, which is the chaotic neutral star. And
Mm-hmm.
we have the Rabbit Prince, which is the chaotic neutral key.
Wow, so we have all chaotic neutral cards in those positions. The first thing that I would be thinking of is that is very unusual, specifically because you have all chaotic cards in the lawful row. So the first thing I would say to Perram is, I'm seeing a lot of disharmony in your character's past. There is a lot of trouble there. Things were not very stable for your character. The most important card in that row, however, is going to be the let's see. Pick up the card that is the Puppet Master for me and bring it up to the camera.
The Puppet Master? The Carnival?
Yeah, the Carnival, I'm sorry. So if we look at the Carnival, this card has the chaotic neutral alignment, like Perram said. It's the chaotic neutral card of charisma or of wisdom, and it appeared in the lawful neutral spot. That means that that card is misaligned, which means it has a very important, very prominent effect on Perram's character. We also have the Rabbit Prince, who is keys, and we have the top one. That one was hammers, right? The Mountain Man?
Yes, the shield.
Shield. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to note is that the Mountain Man, looking at him, is a Constitution card, and he represents an encounter with a physical power outside of one's control. He personifies authority, an army, an earthquake, or even a desperately needed rainstorm. Then we look at the Carnival, who was a wisdom card. The Carnival is illusions and false dreams. It heightens the power of the arcane, but on such whimsical forces can be risky. For others, it depicts imprudent plans or unrealistic ambitions. And finally, we have the Rabbit Prince, who is a Dex card at the bottom. Looking this over, this is a vagrance in hand-to-hand combat. The prince personifies battle and is capricious. As his broken sword symbolize, any combat can fall in battle, no matter how brave or skilled. Sometimes stands for younger members of royalty or other powerful households. So since he's in the spread, he's in the past, he's in the negative. To me, that seems to indicate that Kira's trouble in the past has to do with her losing a fight, most likely. She lost this fight. It had bad consequences for her. And looking at the Carnival being the card that primarily drives this particular area, we can see that it is illusions and false dreams. So for it to be so horribly misaligned, it's probably a good chance that she had a dream of aspirations for in the nobility or in the navy of Andoran, but something with this fight caused that entire dream to shatter. And then looking up top to the Mountain Man, it would seem that this fight was with something that was completely out of her control, an authority or an army. So right here, I'm going to think to myself, okay, well, this could either be she got into some sort of scruffle in the actual Andoran Navy itself, and it was with an authority figure, and she lost that battle and was ultimately removed, and her dreams were shattered. And the other option is that she went up against some foe in the Navy that she couldn't beat and dishonored herself by losing, or maybe even like getting her whole ship captured. So if I'm thinking about the Carnival representing false dreams, the thing that I would probably say to Perram is something happened to Kiara that discredited her family major. And it was something to do with the authority in the Navy. Perhaps they found out that somebody in her family was smuggling information, and she had to appear before the courts because this is a lawful row that the cards are in. So my best guess would be that there was probably some sort of scuffle between the military hierarchy and Kira's family that her family ultimately lost. And because of it, they were dishonorably removed from the Navy, which is what brings her to the Pathfinder Society today. How does that sound so far, Perram?
It sounds good. I do know that just from what little bit of talking about her character that she did, that the whatever trouble she had to do with her father's reputation in the Navy. So that lines up well.
See, by looking at the cards and thinking of what Perram told me, I could come to a general logical conclusion about what that would come to. And then, since I'm not actually doing a real fortune telling, I can say to Perram, and we can try to build his character's backstory just by, saying, oh, this is what I was thinking, and it kind of matches what you were saying. Mm-hmm. So let's move on. We're going to move to the present now. Perram's going to start by flipping over the positive present at the top. Then
is the marriage, which
the
is
marriage.
the lawful neutral.
Which suite, please?
Crown.
Okay, and then he's going to do the unclear.
And we have the liar, which is the chaotic evil of the crown.
Ooh, and let's go to the negative.
And we have the demon's lantern, which is the chaotic evil of the key.
Okay, so let's take a look at these cards. The first thing that I can see is that none of the cards are misaligned. So none of them have a particularly strong play on the current climate of Kira's present in the Pathfinder Society. So looking first at the charisma set, because there are two charisma cards, that makes me think, oh, there's a kind of a synergy between them. Let's check it out. I am going to look at the liar, chaotic evil, in the unclear present, I believe. No, they're all in the present. This would be in the unclear present.
Mm-hmm.
So the liar represents love at its most treacherous. It's not the love that moves mountains. It is the love that rips hearts in two and causes lovers to leap to their deaths. This can mean obsession, unrequited passion, or doomed love. Misaligned, indicates a new relationship beginning, although disguised as something much less beautiful. So we have something with love being unclear, and it doesn't look like it's a very good relationship in her present. That could mean, since we're talking about the Pathfinder Society, either that maybe she's fallen in love with a Pathfinder, or it's generally talking about her that her presence in the Pathfinder Society is somewhat treacherous, in the sense that she might become either obsessed, or the Pathfinder Society won't return her, gung-ho convictions. Now, if we look at the marriage, then that is a union of people, ideas, or kingdoms, or other distinct things. It might bring forth new power, or it might be a ruinous joining that have never been of things that have never been united, and that is in the positive. So what that is probably indicating, that her choice to join the Pathfinder Society is a generally good one. It is a union between her and the society and other people, and the marriage also says that once wedded, the two cannot be parted. This is a card of permanent change. So her choice to become a Pathfinder isn't one that she's likely to go back on. But there's something unclear happening in the present in terms of her passion. So maybe she's throwing herself whole gung-ho into the society, and she figures that if she can't have her dream of being a naval commander, maybe she's going to try to cut it out as like a Pathfinder, make her way to be a VC. But that conviction, that love, either might bloom into obsession, or she might never actually go anywhere in the society. And we're going to look at the negative now, at the very bottom, the Demon Lantern, which is a key card. The Demon Lantern is partially in the right place. It is a chaotic evil card in the neutral evil position. So it's a card of traps, tricks of hand, and sleight of mind. The will-o-wisp and the man who sought their light represent an impossible or intractable situation. Misaligned, the Demon Lantern represents an opportunity or a guide. So it's not misaligned. So something about her situation in the Pathfinder Society is impossible. Maybe her disgrace has carried over to the Liberty's Edge faction, because I know that Andoran has a strong presence in the Pathfinder Society through Liberty's Edge. And maybe even though her presence in the society is ultimately good for her, as shown by the marriage, and her we know that something unclear, something could be unrequited in her current, or her obsession could be unrequited in the society. That presence of the Demon Lantern probably means that someone is actively working to undermine her reputation. And to me, I think the most logical course of action is that she's not popular among the Liberty's Edge faction, and generally among other Andoran PCs who hail from Andoran. So what are your thoughts so far, Perram?
It sounds like a good. It sounds like a good way to evolve the story there. I mean, especially if she's likely to still harbor some sort of loyalty to Andoran in her efforts to facilitate Andorian's interest in the society would be met with not so kind reception.
Right. So our general thought process so far is that in the past, her father did something to the society, in the Navy, that dishonored her entire family, and she was dishonorably discharged from the Navy, despite the fact that she had a lot of big dreams and high aspirations into the Andoran military. So eventually, she finds her way to the Pathfinder Society, and she throws herself full-heartedly into the Pathfinder Society, trying to be the best operative she can and trying to build her reputation, kind of like a new start sort of thing. But Andoran's presence within the society is felt, and despite all of the good she tries to do for Andoran, she's met with a lot of open hostility because of her family's tarnished name. So all that's left to look at now is the future. So we're going to start by looking at the positive future in the top row.
That is the snake bite. It is the chaotic evil of books.
Oh, right. So that's an intelligence card, and that's actually 100. That's not 100% misaligned, but it's pretty close, honestly, because it would be in the chaotic goods spot. So that card is probably going to be important. Let's flip over to the unclear future.
Okay. We are in the Teamster. It is the neutral shield.
All right. And that would be a neutral shield. And let's look at the final card, which is the negative future.
The Crows, which is in the neutral evil keys.
Oh, right. Interesting. We have a good spread here. And the one thing that's very interesting that I've seen about Kira's reading is that it's generally very chaotic and evil slanted. So it's her story, her past, her present, and her future is very much a case of best people with the worst outcomes and or intentions. So let's start by looking at that chaotic evil card in the positive future, because that is definitely misaligned, not completely, but it's definitely going to be significant to the reading. The snake bite represents a vile poisoned weapon. Poison takes many forms, representing death of ideas or freedom, or well as the ability to turn friends against each other or poison the minds of the virtuous. Misaligned, this card can be a mental leap, a new friendship, or a discovery. So it looks like Kira's not going to stay resolute in the face of all of this negativity. It's probably going to seriously take its toll. It's going to basically poison her mind, in the sense that if her story keeps up this turn, the Pathfinder Society is going to ultimately wear her down. Specifically, how nothing good she does is ever requited, which we saw from the Liar. Moving on to the neutral card of shields, we have the Teamster, who is a driving external force that keeps the subject going no matter what. This force could be physical or mental, as in a person who extorts others to continue on when she has no more strength to give. The force could be good or ill, but cannot be ignored. So, to me, something that drives her on, that has to be her dreams, because dreams and ambitions have been a recurring theme in this reading. So I would be obliged to say that even though like her mind is poison, it's seriously wearing her down, in terms of like she's basically becoming jaded with her chances of ever aspiring to anything greater. But despite that, the fact that she wants to do this, she wants to be a venture captain, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. It keeps pushing her onward. Looking at the final card, which is the neutral evil card of the keys, which is the Crows. They are a dangerous bunch who indicate violent taking of that which is loved. Wherever they appear, murder, theft, or shocking loss occurs. So that clearly, looking at this, I would say that this puts the first card into perspective a little bit better, the poison card. I'm thinking that maybe this general emotion that Kira is feeling that's wearing her down, she keeps pushing herself on. I think she's a shield character. She's big, she's brawny, she's martial, she's probably very survivable. I think she's going to experience a lot of comrades dying in service in the Pathfinder Society. And I think that is going to be the poison that starts wearing her down mentally, rather than it being like those Andoran people, the crows being in the future, the memories of all the people who've died under her watch, so to speak, because she sounds like somebody who is lawful good, is very into protecting people. That is going to be the thing that starts wearing her down and makes her jaded. She's going to keep pressing on for her dreams and for all of those people who have who basically died around her. But man, oh man, is that going to affect her general disposition? What do you think, Pam?
This is not a very happy reading.
No, you got a very negative reading.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like this character is destined for a very happy future. It's generally worth noting that the cards don't always represent things that have to happen. It represents things that could happen and are likely to happen given the character's current path. So maybe the warning of the cards is that you need to be careful and maybe be a little bit more proactive in pursuing your dreams, and specifically not to let those ambitions cloud you where it regards to other people are concerned, because the crows being in your future, meaning that loss and thievery are in your future. And if you're not careful, they're going to wear you down, as indicated by our poisonous card. And even though it won't be enough to stop you from keep going, it's going to leave you very jaded.
Yeah, she seems to like she'll be like by the time she retires, she'll be like the old grizzled like naysayer all the time.
Yeah, I think that's what's in her future.
Mm-hmm.
So that is generally how you perform a Harrow reading. You go through card by card. You start in the past. You move your way through the present and into the future. You look at every card, and using the information that you do know about the character, you tie it in to make as creative as a narrative as possible. You want to try to build it together to answer that question. One important thing that's worth bringing up, this didn't happen in this reading, but at the beginning of our reading, we had our friend Kira draw a card to represent her role in all of this, and she got the bear. Generally, how the rules of Harrow work, if your role card appears at any point during the reading, no matter where it appears, it is the most important card in the reading because it represents someplace where you are active. So no matter where the bear popped up, if it had appeared, we would have been going, oh, this is so important and cool. All right. So, Perram, do you have any questions about the Harrow reading or any more comments that you would like to add before we sign off for the night?
Now, this isn't the only spread in Harrow, is it?
It's not. This is the spread that you're generally told to use in adventures and PFS scenarios and the like. It's the most simplest. It's the one that's outlined in the actual Harrow setup. And when you get right down to it, you can really do anything you want. I don't think the book actually has any alternate spreads. I'm pretty sure it only talks about this specific one, but that in and of itself is very different from how Tarot works in the real world. Tarot has hundreds of different spread lineups. It's got quick spreads. It's got more in-depth readings. Some people just draw a card at random and meditate on it, which you are certainly more than able to do. Honestly, that's probably how Harrow witches and other Harrow-based classes who draw cards from their deck and gain a benefit from it work. But yeah, if you want to change up the rules, go for it. The little booklet itself doesn't have any alternate ones. This is generally the one that's assumed to be used throughout Golarion. Right. But, you know, twist it up.
Yeah, but the Harrow Master Handbook does have several alternate spreads in it.
Ooh, maybe we could do another episode then where we talk about those. This is the base one that's with the Harrow rules. And I think it's pretty simple. You know, once you learn the general alignments, if you keep that little book with you, man, it's pretty easy. You know, you just go through, you read the cards. Another thing that you can do is each suite has its own general topic. Strength represents war, battle, and honor. Dexterity represents trouble, children, and entertainment. Constitution represents health, home, and pain, and intelligence represents money, school, and literature. Wisdom is ancient history, morality, and the gods. Finally, charisma is love, family, and politics. So, again, that's really not anything that is too out there for a Pathfinder player, because it's all things that correspond to the ability scores. And if you think about it, it's kind of a big fourth wall breaker, because the cards in game so heavily relate to the game mechanics, but at the same time, that's pretty fun, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the characters themselves would have any idea that these things relate to game mechanics that they don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fun Easter egg for the players. So, that is really all I have to say about the Harrow at this time. If you watchers and or listeners have any questions or any things you'd like to see from Perram, myself, any of us at No Direction, we're still very much playing with this idea of private sanctuary videos, in the sense that, we show you things rather than just talk about it. But if you have anything you'd like to see or talk about, please do so in the comments section below, or on our Facebook page, which is No Direction, Facebook.com/No Direction. Am I right, Perram?
Facebook.com/No Direction. But the best place to find us is at NoDirectionPodcast.com.
Yes, 100%, because we are always there. We're always watching. Also, don't look for our forums. We had to put them down. It was really sad. All right. Then until next time, I'm Alexander Augunas.
And I'm Jefferson Jay Thacker, also known as Perram.
And you are always welcome in our private sanctuary.